Story 1. This is very well documented at this point. This is not a conspiracy theory. The people involved, like J.D. Vance, Peter Thiel, and Curtis Yarvin, are on the record repeatedly. The only question is to what extent they will be able to use the current administration to implement their plan. Story 2. These people think they are special. They believe they are royalty and that the peasants are all foolish and need to be ruled by someone smarter. They have been born into a world of privilege, have never had to face any real hardships, and honestly think their wealth has come from their own hard work and ingenuity. The problem is that they are mistaken. They have been given a winning hand their whole life and mistakenly believe absurd notions like everyone has the same 24-hour day and other nonsense. This is the same problem we have faced for thousands of years. Story 3. I cannot speak to space exploration, but in terms of warping our political sphere, it is all part of the technology billionaires' goal of dissolving the nation-state and developing their own country. It sounds incredibly strange, but if you follow the money, it is where you end up. Most people are familiar with Project 2025 by now, but fewer are familiar with the Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel side of the equation. They are currently happy working together with Project 2025 to achieve their goals, but eventually, they will clash and diverge after they dismantle the United States and its institutions. Blonde Politics created a video on it a few months ago that everyone should watch and share. Story 4. It is complicated. Getting people off the planet is Elon's thing, but most of those Silicon Valley individuals and many venture capital extremists like J.D. Vance are into Curtis Yarvin's dark Enlightenment philosophy, which is not actually fascist. It is neo-monarchist. They want the world to be run kind of like classical Greece, where each state is managed by a chief executive officer. They think all forms of democratization were a mistake because they do not have a single figure looking to maximize value over the long term. Of course, we tried that and it collapsed because people are fallible, so you do not want one person to have too much power. They also believe in race science and want to connect all unproductive individuals to virtual reality and put them in storage like in The Matrix as an alternative to just killing them all. Of course, if that does not work, they are happy to eliminate them all anyway. Story 5. In the same way that Make America Great Again is a cult, the Silicon Valley technology community is a cult. They believe they are beings of superior intellect that deserve to rule over all things, unencumbered by rules and regulations, and that the rest of us are either useful, replaceable workers or useless, disposable, surplus individuals. The technology community cult, called transhumanism, believes that the human race can evolve beyond its current physical and mental limitations, especially by means of science and technology. To achieve their transhumanist ambitions, they need to escape this, in their opinion, ruined and dying planet and seed the universe. But we're not invited on the ride. Only they, in their opinion, have the genius DNA worthy of advancing humanity's march across the stars. That's about it in a nutshell. So basically, the Borg from Star Trek. Story 6. Watch this video. It is well researched and came out 3 months ago. You can follow the resource links in that video. They have been plotting for this for years. Story 7. They are insulated from most material outcomes. They are in creative mode, crafting a cool plotline for themselves while we suffer. By the time reality sets in and the consequences of their actions come crashing into their own lives, we will all be dead or have been suffering for years. We aren't insulated like they are. Story 8. Their end game? Hide in compounds with, they hope, enough influence over their guards and servants to control their own societies. Finally, the chief executive officer of a brokerage house explained that he had nearly completed building his own underground bunker system and asked, "How do I maintain authority over my security force after the event?" The event. That was their euphemism for the environmental collapse, social unrest, nuclear explosion, solar storm, unstoppable virus, or malicious computer hack that takes everything down. This single question occupied us for the rest of the hour. They knew armed guards would be required to protect their compounds from raiders as well as angry mobs. One had already secured a dozen Navy SEALs to make their way to his compound if he gave them the right cue. But how would he pay the guards once even his cryptocurrency was worthless? What would stop the guards from eventually choosing their own leader? The billionaires considered using special combination locks on the food supply that only they knew, or making guards wear disciplinary collars of some kind in return for their survival, or maybe building robots to serve as guards and workers, if that technology could be developed in time. They suspect that they are in trouble if society collapses, which is why they are particularly dangerous. Like us, they have nothing to lose. Story 9. I just do not understand it. If you had billions of dollars and access to the latest technology and artificial intelligence, you should be using it to create a wonderful utopia for all people and a sustainable society that protects the environment. But it seems like they just want to destroy everything. Story 10. The end game is for the United States to become United States Incorporated, a new governing society where its subjects are connected 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is precisely why J.D. Vance was chosen as vice president via Peter Thiel, and why Vance will more than likely stay on after Trump. The mass firings are an excuse to get rid of all levels of government for this reason. Over the course of the next decade, the idea will have been normalized enough for them to start implementing this plan, unless someone or something stops them from doing that, but at this point, I doubt it. Follow the Curtis Yarvin and neo-reactionary trail to find out more. It is all out there in the open. Story 11. It is really just a group of insecure men suffering from fragile masculinity trying to prove how macho they are to each other. Story 12. A lot of good answers here, but I think it is simpler than a lot of people seem to be making it out to be. You cannot have infinite economic growth on a planet with finite space. Story 13. It is not about long-term goals. It is about prestige and buying experiences that others cannot have. They do not want to go to space because of any lofty goals for mankind. They want to go to space because most other people cannot. Story 14. I watched a video about a theory saying they want all of America to be like that one town owned by Walmart. Different parts of the states will be owned by different large corporations and will basically tether families in place to live, breathe, and die by their work. Story 15. Imagine you are playing a game like Civilization, where you are competing against other players. Your end goal is to accumulate more power and win. Do you care about how the people in your cities are doing? Probably not. You care that they have enough food and amenities so that they do not rebel, and then you dedicate resources to producing units or gold or whatever else you feel will get you a better spot in the game. If you think that invasion will help, then you invade and take over some other person's or non-playable character's city. It is all a game, so none of it really matters in the end. That is the billionaire mindset as far as I can tell. Life is a game that they intend to win by accumulating more wealth, more possessions, more power, with no real end game beyond, look how high I got my score. Story 16. Elon, Mark, and Jeff are all some of the most miserable people on this planet. They spend all their time trying to convince people they are cool and liked. They are not cool. No amount of money will buy charisma. I feel sorry for them. Anyone who can't live in the present and can't be content with what they have, always reaching for more and more, those people are truly miserable. If these technology entrepreneurs took 25% of their money and made the world a better place, they could be worshipped. Those individuals could end homelessness, build all the affordable housing, and eliminate hunger. Instead, they buy elections and fire federal employees. Wealthy individuals have more money than sense. Story 17. It is about power. They have it. They always want more. They feel powerful when they can crush poor people like insects. Elon intends to fire 100,000 people and cut Social Security. He will do it simply because he can. Story 18. Read Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson if you want to know. Some of these people are big fans of that book, but inexplicably took it as aspirational rather than a cautionary tale. They are the same kind of people who literally named the company Palantir. Story 19. I think only some of them are dreaming about getting off the planet in any real way. The rest are just wanting to create safe spaces for themselves to survive the changes that are coming with the climate without having to do any work themselves. Hence the ramping up of siphoning all the wealth and resources they can to themselves and all the talk of building these network cities. I bet that these network cities will include climate-controlled enclosed greenhouses for growing food, extreme monitoring of the citizenry to ensure dissenters are dealt with, dumping toxic waste outside the city limits because it disregards any survivors on the outside, and recycling the dead in some way such as biofuel or fertilizer. They don't want to invest in trying to slow climate change. They don't want to give up their lifestyle, and they see most people as lesser beings than themselves. That's why they want to divide up the usable labor force, because smaller groups are easier to control than larger ones. All of this is a worst-case scenario, though, and if the world goes full-blown network cities dystopia, I hope they will leave those of us who choose not to move to their cities alone for the most part. I would be fine with living a shorter life off the land and being laid to rest in the earth by my loved ones instead of living in some artificial intelligence-operated cityscape laboring for the oligarchs, removed from nature, and being ground up into a nutritious paste to feed the rest of society. Story 20. They already have all the information. Soon crops won't grow at the rate needed to sustain current global populations. This is why there is such a concentrated effort to reduce worldwide population. Because soon we won't be able to feed everyone once the planet heats up another 2 degrees Celsius. With drones eventually replacing the lower and middle class, energy needs will become the economic limiting factor and not population. Thus, they really do not need anyone reading this comment for very much longer. If they can't get enough of us to die off in wars or to voluntarily stop reproducing, then we will have to starve to death, and those covered chocolate locusts and roaches will become more attractive. Story 21. It is all a game to them. The objective is to score the most points so that they can enter their initials on the leaderboard at the end. Story 22. That is a great question, and one that a lot of people are starting to ask. It seems like the push for space colonization has shifted from an exciting frontier of exploration to almost a necessity, as if the elites know something we do not. One possibility is that they genuinely believe Earth is becoming unsustainable due to resource depletion, climate change, or political instability, and they see getting off-planet as an insurance policy for humanity, or at least for themselves. But another, more cynical perspective is that they are just continuing the age-old pattern of consolidating power and wealth. If they can establish a foothold in space first, they control the gateway, the resources, and ultimately who gets to go. It is also worth considering that space colonization is a long-term investment. Right now, we are still in the phase where government subsidies, tax incentives, and investor enthusiasm are fueling the industry. Once infrastructure is in place, it could turn into a massive monopoly where a handful of companies own off-world mining, energy production, and even human settlement rights. If they position themselves as the only ones who can provide access to space, they end up in control of the future economy. So is it about saving humanity, or just ensuring they remain in charge? It probably depends on which technology oligarch you ask. My guess is it is about the latter. What are your thoughts? Story 23. While Musk might be difficult to understand, I think he deep down really believes he can do better than the previous state of the art. The thing is, if you approach the problem of replacing a legacy system with many challenges, bugs, and inefficiencies from a technical perspective, you never just delete and go for a fresh rewrite while shutting the old system down. The reason a legacy system reached its current state is that there were good reasons along the way for accumulating all those issues. What you need to do is meticulous planning and deciding which processes to keep or replace first and which we can live without. All of this works out best when supported by changes in the process itself, which the administrator right now has the power to implement. So, let's say there are reasons for a rewrite. I am not saying I agree, but using the technical world line of reasoning here, so bear with me. You plan meticulously, open up the old system so that you can replace parts of it at a time, and you chip away at it one process at a time. You do not, under any circumstance, execute this with a group of inexperienced individuals. Even when done properly, rewrites can still fail. In this case, we are, however, talking about rewriting multiple systems at once, which is never something you should do, assuming the systems are fairly independent. Story 24. My bet is that they all know the climate is way worse than is being reported or than anyone will admit. January was 1.75 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial times. 2.0 degrees Celsius is when billions of people are predicted to start dying, facing famine, mass migration, and so on. It also makes sense why Donald Trump wants Greenland and Canada. They are going to be some of the best land to live and farm on after the climate collapse. I think this is all one last power grab and consolidation before things really hit the fan, and they may hit the fan sooner than anyone expects. Story 25. If I thought it was for a good reason, It would be because eventually the species has to develop a way to survive or outrun wandering black holes if it wishes to continue indefinitely. Pushing in that direction would be reassuring on some level to many. It is not for a good reason, though. It is about consolidating unprecedented levels of power and wealth for which current systems of government are generally unprepared. Story 26. Enslave every American in a subscription service for everything we depend on. Then we just siphon our paychecks directly to them. Story 27. One theory is that we are on the verge of incredible technological breakthroughs. Immortality, cybernetic enhancements, and human embryos developed without female eggs or sperm are just some possibilities. Once all of this, along with advanced robots and artificial intelligence, is achieved, there may be no need for as many humans. Humans are merely occupying space and depleting natural resources. Imagine a world where robots produce whatever they need and the Earth is inhabited by only 300,000 to 500,000 people. So, the plan may involve gradually eliminating us. It's just a theory, but when you look at what is happening, it becomes increasingly difficult to convince yourself that it is a crazy theory. Story 28. I do not know, but as a fan of techno, I would appreciate us not confusing people around the world by using this terminology and applying it to technology enthusiasts or technologists. Techno should not be associated with these individuals. Story 29. Live forever by either rebuilding their bodies or downloading them into computers or even into other people's bodies, which is why they refer to it as chipping us. Get off the planet and live forever among the stars, essentially allowing them to live and expand indefinitely. They are probably 100 years too early for that still, so it is about amassing power and wealth. Story 30. I think you are sort of misplacing your mistrust. Yes, the technology entrepreneurs are involved, but the global financiers hold the real power and will share all of their plans if we will only pay attention. Story 31. Capitalism. Buy it, strip it for parts, line your pockets, sell it to the highest bidder, and then use your ill-gotten gains to promptly leave for some other venture and do it again. Because apparently no one will have to suffer any kind of consequences other than fate giving them a botched surgery. Story 32. So I think Musk wants to build a civilization on Mars where he can be the ruler. More realistically, a technocracy where pieces of the country or world are owned and maintained by corporations is my guess at the goal. Most ultra-wealthy individuals are interested in artificial intelligence, robotics, and automation. It would make sense that they want to replace workers with robots and defend their corporate zones with drones in order to establish their own little kingdoms and to make the masses obsolete. This would also resolve many of the massive challenges the world faces regarding pollution, clean drinking water, and food availability. Story 33. Basically, they want huge fiefdoms with massive power and influence, while having connections and access to the most powerful political elements in the United States and the world. Story 34. I learned recently what effective altruism is, and I believe they think they are helping the whole of humanity in the long run by hoarding their wealth now to help later. It is a simplistic view from them, but I believe it is at least partly incorporated into their thinking. Story 35. The idea they have is to bring about the end of nation-states and force the world into what they call network states. It is basically a network of independent city-state company towns, each run by the owner or owners of the company. This represents an end of democracy type of scenario, with extreme surveillance that would even shock George Orwell. They plan on doing this, in part, by buying up parts of existing cities and driving out anyone who disagrees with this plan. Think of this as colonialism 2.0. Story 36. Read up on Curtis Yarvin. He is a fringe thinker who has gained traction among technology enthusiasts and the current administration. Story 37. It's a low-information conspiracy theory to think they are trying to get humans off the planet. Some of them want humans to expand to be capable of living on other planets and moons too, but that is absolutely not the same thing as wanting people off this one. Also, remember that a self-sufficient colony on another planet, or even just in orbit around this one, is not something that can happen within the lifetimes of these people, and they are well aware of those timelines. They are involved in drawing them up. Elon Musk, for example, wants, among other things, to be immortalized in the history books as the man who took humanity to other planets. So he is building the groundwork to get that underway. If he is successful, then by the time he dies, There will be a permanently occupied Mars base that has some kind of nascent industries that in the future could potentially lead to eventual economic self-sufficiency, but it will not be actually self-sufficient. Getting to that point takes a lot more years than he has left, more years than anyone alive today has left. For obvious reasons, he wants it as established as possible as quickly as possible, but part of his motivation is being the founder of the next 500 years of history yet to come, beyond his death. Father of the grandest sweep of human history. Earth will always be the best real estate, the most pleasant, the safest, and the seat of power. It will always be where the billionaire oligarchs live. Musk has said that as a lifetime achievement epic capstone for the history books, he wants to die on Mars. A lot of people have confusedly misinterpreted that to mean he wants to abandon Earth, creating all these conspiracy theories. Discard that misinterpretation. He wants to live on Earth, and when the end must come, he wants to make it as spectacular and historical as possible. To die on another planet after having made that possible. Or at least that was what he wanted over 10 years ago. He seems to now be preoccupied with new goals, so who knows if his old pursuits are still of interest. Story 38. If you are capable of accumulating wealth to that degree, you are hardwired to continually try to exponentially expand that wealth. Just my theory here, the absolute jackpot would be to crack asteroid mining. It has been said that the first person to do so would be the first trillionaire. That threshold may be crossed soon regardless, but the point stands. Developing the technology to explore other worlds and general advancements in rocket science, in the name of goodwill towards humanity and adventure, also coincide with advancing technologically enough to begin asteroid mining operations. Story 39A. There is money to harvest from launching satellites. There is an economic event in the future when we reach the point where we can ship resources to Earth orbit, possibly have refineries in orbit, and bring it down the well. Asteroid mining will be wealth beyond imagination. See, on average, it takes light or communication a little under 13 minutes to travel from Mars to Earth. It would be its own world, fresh for shaping, and Elon Musk could control the oxygen valve and thus the lives of everyone. He could be a part of writing the Constitution. D. How many oligarchs are focused? Story 40. Minerals. Obama signed a law around 2010 that allowed anyone who discovers a mineral in space to keep all rights to it. Story 41. They aren't evil in the sense that they want people to die. They just ignore any information that they don't like. Fossil fuels cause climate change, but does it? Maybe we don't know for sure, so I can keep making billions. The election didn't work out how you thought. Did it? Maybe it was meddled with, so I can win. Social programs are better at preventing crime than having more police, but I prefer tax breaks for myself instead. Story 42. Don't trust the people busy turning Earth into Mars to have a plan that will turn Mars into Earth. We are staring down the barrel of the great filter of Fermi's paradox. And it turns out it is billionaires. Story 43. Ultimately, the destruction of a proportional middle class is caused by widening the wealth gap. This creates a governing class that has accumulated most of the available wealth, to the point where the markets are influenced by a handful of individuals through buybacks, rather than having power in the hands of the populace. This situation creates stability for those worth billions. Story 44. Less humans and oversight give them more time and flexibility to reach their goals. Living off our planet isn't anything like a television show. There are reasons we don't even have permanent bases on the moon, let alone in orbit, for more than the past 50 years. Story 45. That is easy. If you are the one responsible for the actual building of the first colony on Mars and it is successful, guess what it is going to be named? Guess what history is going to say about you? You have amassed untold wealth already, and your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren will still be among the wealthiest in the galaxy. It is about their drive to not die insignificantly. They want their legacy to live on, even if it means killing other people and taking advantage of them in the process. Narcissism at its finest. Story 46. Like others have said, their own prestige is important, but also acquiring space resources like mining the asteroid belt. Whoever gets a lead on mining asteroids is going to be the first to achieve whatever comes after trillionaire. Story 47. With the financial competition out of the way, Prices for goods and resources will be cheaper to build their compound. Story 48. Auschwitz. Instead of sending Jews, you send aliens. Going to Mars is a death sentence. If you see videos of a thriving community, make sure it is not computer-generated imagery or some fake production studio meant to convince you it is real. It will never be real. Story 49. Their end game is to colonize the universe and live forever as kings. To colonize the universe, Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos have companies designed around getting to space. But it is unrealistic to expect they can colonize the universe in the next 30 years. Hence, they need to figure out how to live forever. Silicon Valley billionaires invest in biotechnology companies trying to extend life. Musk prefers the Neuralink style, where your brain can be uploaded and downloaded into another human or body. There are companies out there cloning human embryos already. They have multiple biotechnology initiatives. They just need one to succeed. However, these biotechnology experiments are unethical and unlikely to be approved by the Food and Drug Administration. So they are creating nation-states like Praxis, where they can experiment on humans without laws. However, how can a small nation-state protect itself from the government? They create weapons and military forces to fight and defeat the government. They have convinced others that software is the future of the military, and Silicon Valley is the best in the world at software, so they should be developing the software and weapons. They have already started. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff they fired was replaced by a man who owns a venture capital firm in Silicon Valley. Once they control all military software or have military software better than the actual military, they can go toe-to-toe with the United States government. They can shut off the software the military uses. They can secretly develop nuclear weapons. And eventually, all these billionaires will create their own nation-states, where they will be kings, pay no taxes, and do all the illegal and unethical things they want. And no one can stop them because they will have nuclear weapons and be protected by their military software. Story 50. For us, a real-life combination scenario of Terminator, RoboCop, The Matrix 1984, Dune, Mad Max, Fahrenheit 451, The Handmaid's Tale, Idiocracy, and I, Robot. For them, Stargate, Interstellar, Mission to Mars, The Martian, Star Wars, and Starship Troopers, Star Trek. No need for entertainment anymore when you have front-row tickets to reality. Reality is stranger than fiction, now more than ever. Story 51. Total corporate rule. No governments. No constitution. No Bill of Rights. They want Omnicorp and Delta City. After that, they will replace all workers with robots. Poor humans will be herded into camps and murdered. The earth will be green again. They will achieve immortality. They will travel in space. But they will fight among themselves vying for power. Our robotic future will lead to a Dune-like future. Democracy will become a short spark in the history of time. Story 52. Endgame? No, you misunderstand. These people don't believe in planning ahead. They just do whatever they think is best in the moment and let other people worry about the long term. Story 53. They are kind of playing things by ear, and some of them unfortunately happen to be more foolish and involved than others. Story 54. I suspect they have crawled so far up their privileged positions, into their own lifestyles where things just appear when they want them, and everything is numbers, code, and finance that they have forgotten how most of the world lives, forgotten or never bothered to find out how most food is made, how soil and rain do not just move where you want it, how farms and factories and societies work, how regular people also have families and friendships, and even animals have wills of their. In short, they are so far away from reality that they have become enamored with the mix of oligarchs and ultra-liberal cyberpunk dystopia called the network state and think it is a good idea, at least for themselves. Story 55. A friend told me to look up Praxis. Nice, lovely cities for the elite with similar values and a homogeneous society type situation. Watch the video. Rumor is at least one congressperson is a member. Weird world we are living in these days. Story 56. Becoming techno-feudals who will control many aspects of people's lives, with large groups of the population depending on them for income. Story 57. They have a generic network state and feudalistic vision, but they absolutely have not considered all aspects. Their whole vision for the future is dependent on us laying down and accepting it because we are either too unaware or too in awe to know what is going on. In short, it is their real-world version of civilization, and they are the players while we are the non-player characters. However, we outnumber them, and we must remember that they will need us. Artificial intelligence is not yet in a position to drive tanks and arrest people. They did not account for the human aspect because individuals with psychopathic tendencies are not familiar with the human condition. Story 58. I think they are less focused on saving humanity by making us a multi-planet species and more about making it possible for them to leave if a cataclysm is coming, or about sending us to mine asteroids, planets, and moons as their slaves. Story 59. Once free from the country, you are free from its governments. They want to rule planets, is one take. Also, there is a kind of manifest destiny to it as well. A lot of people believe that if we as a species stay on this finite planet, we are destined to ruin. So the only option is to expand to infinite horizons. But they probably just see this as a new age of colonialism. Story 60, cyberpunk, basically. What else would technology enthusiasts love more than to be able to run countries as they see fit? That is, for maximum profit with minimal expenses. All those novels and stories about corporations running the world are not so far-fetched when you think about it. Story 61. I beg of you to read and spread this as you can. Story 62. For techno-oligarchs? They will eventually be dealt with by thunder warriors as soon as the emperor reveals himself. Story 63. Imagine the position of the first space colonists. They will be, for some time, completely reliant on the private space industry for life support. They will be removed from any land owned by any terrestrial governments, their laws, and their protection. The corporations will own these settlers unlike anyone has ever been owned before. That would make the chief executive officers totalitarian dictators in a way that would make Stalin salivate. Imagine the raw power and the degree to which these people could be exploited for profit when the slightest protests are grounds to take their oxygen away. Story 64. For the ones who believe we are on a crash course with the end of the world, they seek to acquire enough power and resources to insulate themselves from the end times. For those who do not believe it, they aim to gain power and influence to satisfy their egos and shape the world according to their vision. Story 65. Feudalism. A powerful, ridiculously wealthy elite hand-picked loyal management nobles, then peasant worker servants. Layers of loyalty wherein the lion's share of profits go to the top while the underclasses fight to take their share and focus on infighting while still maintaining the exorbitant taxes to their overlords. They want Dune. Story 66. Don't think we are capable of creating a man-made, fully functional ecosystem that can support a large number of people anywhere. Not underground, in space, or on a hostile planet. However, if I were a billionaire and did not want to become ordinary during or after the apocalypse, I would be working to figure out how that could happen. From what I have heard, they are working on this. I would wager that they would try to create a controlled apocalypse so they can integrate it into a plan for survival and power for the benefit of humanity. Story 67. Ultimate deregulation of their respective industries and privatization of government programs. Consider privatizing Medicaid and Medicare, supplemental security income, National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and so on. Consider union-busting efforts and privatization of the United States Postal Service, leading to profit-driven motives. It will essentially be like what happens in Russia. By the way, I know that Russia has universal healthcare in theory, but it is woefully inadequate, which is why so many Russians use private insurance. Story 68. Be more afraid of the rapid devaluation of the dollar. It is the reason Elon Musk and Donald Trump want to steal the gold in Fort Knox. The dollar will be pretty much like the ruble in less than 5 years. Story 69. Because they are ruining this planet for money and do not plan on stopping. The end game for artificial intelligence is to replace manual laborers so the obscenely rich can live indefinitely underground or off-planet without the risk of less affluent individuals eventually doing away with them. Story 70. Honestly, the way oligarchs act in the United States made me thankful that oligarchs in my country are not as bad as in the United States. Sure, Cojuangco is still the most powerful oligarch in the Philippines for centuries, but at least they still care about having a stable country, and they have this unspoken agreement that maybe not disrupting the stability of the country is good for their interests. American technology oligarchs are very greedy. They don't care about political stability. Story 71. A lot of them, including Elon Musk and Peter Thiel in particular, are part of the TESCREAL movement and outgrowth of so-called effective altruism. Story 72. Nobody will pay Elon to go to Mars. He needs to destroy the National Aeronautics and Space Administration under the guise of being inefficient and have the taxpayer funnel all the money to him. Of course, there is his ego and narcissism to feed. Story 73. I don't think they collectively have an endgame, but they do each have a post-apocalyptic plan for themselves for after the nation-states can no longer sustain themselves and keep the populations together. Basically, they are each building their own little enclave or paradise. For example, Bill Gates has bought a large swath of land in the middle of the United States. This is a consistent pattern, essentially resource hoarding. I think this whole drill baby drill thing probably has nothing much to do with actually ramping up oil production, but rather so more federal land can be purchased by these individuals to add to their collections. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.